Alrighty guys, and welcome to a patch review for Legion TD 3.45. So this has been officially released on FPG. I believe it's Wednesdays and Sundays, new map must be played, so I figured we'd do this patch review now. Anyway, so what we'll go into is firstly a bounty system. So instead of giving a flat rounded down bounty, what will now happen is like some creeps might give 3 gold and some creeps might give 4 gold. So basically it's more accurate and there's overall more gold from leaks because it always used to be rounded down and now it doesn't require an integer value, right? It can use decimal values. So for example, yeah, you can just read this here, but it's basically 30% bounty on whichever level will give 10 gold. Now 30% bounty will give 18 gold, right? Because it used to, 10 creeps used to either be able to give like 10 gold, 20 gold, 30 gold, right? Integer values. Now it's much more accurate. So it's obviously like slight RNG who gets the expensive leaks. For example, if Rummy steals all my expensive leaks, I'm going to be fucking annoyed at him, but it is what it is. And this is the same with King Gold. So I really like this actually, it just makes the game more accurate. Alright, next, leaking after round 10 can reduce your lumber harvesting rate by up to 50%, which is obviously like pretty painful, right? We haven't had a whole lot of experience with this, but the general idea is that like if you're giving 0 bounty, then it starts being like, oh, maybe I start losing a bit of lumber, right? It has something to do with like your value needs to be a certain percent of the recommended value, which changes as you push higher and higher and higher at lumberjacks. So 0 value is not a thing now, basically, because you'll have like super shit income, like lumber, wood. It's just not good. It's still totally fine to leak. People leak all the time, but what's a lot more common to see now from what I've seen, because 15 is still meta, like spoiler alert, 15 is still a big part of the meta. From what I've seen, what's quite common is just like 7, 6, 7, 7 and like splitting leaks, splitting to leak sort of thing. Anyway, a few new debug commands, all of these are nice. Vision bug is kicked and king spells and heals on the multi-board. So actually, I like it personally. I think it's convenient rather than having to type dash king. And yeah, you can see a bit more when you're observing as well. Observing, and then zoom 170 when you're watching replays, which is actually really nice. I hated, when I was a mod, I hated doing the replays at like default zoom. Quite painful. Anyway, we've got some sends. So we've got level 15, 19, 22, 23, 24, got a bit of buff. But here's like the big change, right? So you now got all your sends are in 3 different categories, right? So tanks, rangers, and assassins. So tanks spawn when the wave starts over, about 0.7 seconds. Rangers will spawn after 1.3 seconds to 2.5 seconds, and assassins will spawn after 2.5 seconds to 3.6 seconds, right? And all spawns are sent a little bit later on 10, because what happened like initially in the beta versions was you'd send on 10 and then like everything would be in front of the bosses, and by the time the bosses got to your units, like all the sends would be dead. So that obviously was a little bit problematic. Anyway, so basically tanks spawn first, then rangers, then assassins, okay, which is very relevant. Here we have the list of the sends that are considered tanks, rangers, and assassins. There's a Nerubian is an assassin as well, so that's in here somewhere. Nerubian and Maiden of Pain as well. But anyway, like that's fine. The rest of them look pretty accurate. Then each time you send one of these, you send any unit, all your sends get buffed according to the class of unit, right? So you have tank, ranger, assassin. Tanks increase maximum HP by 2 and then 1% per 100 lumber. Rangers increase attack speed and movement speed by 0.7% per 100 lumber. Assassins are base damage by 0.5 and by 0.6% for each 100 lumber, right? So you'll see this is what it looks like basically. I think damage is at the bottom now, but this is what it looks like. The general idea is that like if you don't have any sin buff, then it's like the sends start to feel a little bit weak, especially on the king. So it's pretty important to get the sin buffs. But we'll talk a little bit about that in the most recent version, because these are like the big changes I'm going for, and then we'll go through the more recent changes. Anyway, Panda, it's got a new ability, takes 50% less damage from ranged attacks. Bowman, increased range. Chariot doesn't do double damage to king, but has a bit of AoE. And then, yeah, you can have a read of all these, but in general, like, some of these sends are on different, are available different levels. I don't believe Firelord is available on 14 anymore. Oh, during level 14, yeah, never mind. So, yeah, okay. Below 250 available all the time. Below 500 available during 9, so you can send them for 10. Below 600, you can send them for 13, so you can send Behemoth 13. And then everything else is available during 14 for level 15, except for Demon. Demon's the one you can't send during 15 at the moment. There are no stand restrictions, so you can send 10 Krakens on 15 if you have enough time to do that. So yeah, that's just like something they're thinking about. Level 15, but at the moment level 15 feels quite a lot better. Anyway, so we can go through the new sends, but I'm just going to scroll through them really quickly because I want to actually talk about these sends in a different video. So we'll just scroll through them quickly. So very quickly, what I'm thinking of doing is basically like a sends over-explained sort of video. And we'll just literally go through every send, talk about when I think they're useful, what they're good for, etc, etc. And like, should you send them, when should you send them, and all this. Alright, so you can read the like dev comments there. I'm not super interested in them, but in general they're trying to like be transparent in terms of what they're actually looking for. Alright, so these are all the sends. Then there's Fire Overlord bug fix, Phoenix bug fix. This was an arena fix, I think. Pirate battleship, more range. Then yeah, and then we have the YOLO mode, so we can have a read of that if you're interested. Probably should have read this a bit more in depth before playing it, but anyway, it's all good. Alright, we'll boost up to the most recent patch, which is the one that everyone's going to be playing on at the moment, and we'll go from there. So, new loading screen. This thing looks pretty cool. I'll try and remember to link an image of it in the description so you can have a look, or obviously you can just play the map and you'll see it. So bug fix, uneven teams caused red to receive friendly sends, which was a little bit dicey. Improved how sends are distributed between the lanes. This is really good. We had some situations on 17 where some people would get like 2,000 wood sends and some people would get like 4,500 wood sends, and it was like, you didn't really see it on 15, you saw it on 17 when people are sending like Demon, Firelord, Kraken, Behemoth, Infernal, Kraken, you know, and there's like a bit of a mix up between the expensive sends. I've had games where it's like someone got a 2,600 send on 16, so they got Demon, Kraken, Behemoth, and then on my lane it was Demon, Firelord, Kraken, Behemoth, Warlock, and I'm thinking like, what the fuck, you know? So that's good. I think that's a lot better now. The lumber tax for leaking is a bit more forgiving. I actually haven't really seen the lumber tax come into play much, but I think that's because everyone is aware of it. People are really avoiding that like full suicide kind of vibe, which is, you know, which is okay. Anyway, sends. Furbolg's movement speed is reduced by 20, thank god. Furbolg was a fucking crank on level 2. It's like really, really difficult to hold because you got to remember because it's a tank, it spawns pretty early. So the Furb was fast quite a lot of the time. Like this thing just meshed shit up onto. It was no joke. Anyway, Warrior attacks a little faster. So yeah, okay, little Warrior buff. Gotta remember that even though you might be thinking like, why did they buff Warriors? Because they're assassins, they spawn a bit later on level 1, so they were actually doing quite a lot worse than they were doing in the previous version on level 1. Spirit has a bit more attack range. Sure. You don't see spirits that often, they're mainly like a resend sort of unit. They're okay. I think this will make it a lot better on level 4 though, potentially. So spirits on 4 might be a bit interesting. Or at least better as an ad. Dark Troll. This fucker. This thing was a crank, man. This thing was scary. Anyway, so now it receives 4% attack speed over 13 attacks instead of 5% over 10 attacks, and it also has 2 less base damage. So it doesn't scale as much, it doesn't scale as quickly, and it does a bit less damage, and it's still going to be a really good send, I think. Right. But yeah, it's a good nerf, because Dark Troll is really strong. It's like really, really scary. Alright, Pandaren, 65 less HP. So I like this. People were talking about nerfing Pandaren, and I actually asked, like some people were talking about nerfing the damage reduction shield on it. I actually asked for a base HP nerf because I thought if your opponent's like full range setups, then if you add pandas on like a 28 send or something, if you've got big tank scaling, like that could actually be pretty legit. Like if these pandas have got like 1500 health, well, probably not. If these pandas have got like, say, 900,000 health just from the tank buffs, then that damage shield is like pretty efficient rather than nerfing the damage shield, because it's not like Panda's ever going to be an overpowered send on like 28 or whatever. It's just maybe a solid option for like a frontline send if you've sent enough stuff beforehand. That was the idea. That's why I wanted the base HP, because the issue with Panda was it was a bit too strong level 10, and base HP hurts it on 10, but it doesn't hurt its scaling, whereas nerfing the damage reduction would hurt its scaling. Anyway, just flexing a little bit there. Maiden of Pain, it's now faster and doesn't collide with as much stuff. I like that. There's like an expensive melee assassin, so the issue was it sat at the back, didn't do much, but this will help it not sit at the back and actually like get through and, you know, hit some units. Still don't think it's a particularly good send. Yeah, I think I'd still avoid this for the most part, but it's interesting. Wild Spider now has 60 more range. I think this thing is not very useful, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that, but you know, it makes it better, which is good. Firelord's got 100 extra range just in the king area. The reason for this is you'd see like Firelords and demons stacking on top of each other, and everyone who like regularly controlled the king was complaining that they don't have hands, they can't click. So, you know, fair enough. There's a nice quality of life change. In terms of actual effect, it makes Firelord like 0.1% stronger, but it's like whatever. Anyway, Whelp, this is another change that I asked for. So it now costs 120 lumber, gives you 6 income, 50 more range, 15 HP, 3 damage on the min and max roll, and I believe that's more attack speed. I think that's like attack time goes down. I could be wrong, but I don't see a reason for them to decrease the attack speed when they're making it, or increase, no. I don't see a reason for them to make it attack slower when it's being, when the wood cost is being increased. So the reason for this is that if you're like a 1-0 start going for a bit of an overbuild, especially in like a faster game, so if you're playing something like Sea Giant, if you're playing a Lord where you're like overbuilding a bit more, like you just never got to send any assassin units, right? Like if you send on 2 and like old Whelp was not an option to send on 2, right? So you'd send like Dino or maybe 3 bows, but probably Dino. Then like unless you sent a Blood Orc on 7, you never got assassin buffs for the entire game, right? You just didn't have assassin buffs. So now this Whelp is like an option to send on level 2 and an option to send on level 10, right? To get some assassin buffs rolling. Because the issue is if you're like overbuilding with a kind of slower wisp start, you just didn't get any assassin buffs, and then your sends felt so shitty in the mid game. So yeah, that's the reasoning behind this. So I think it's a good change, but we'll see how it shakes out. Sent Whelps, both teams sent Whelps on level 1 in a game I played earlier today. They were not nearly as strong as Warriors, so that's a good thing. Anyway, Kobold movement speed, it's a bit quicker, whatever. I don't think the Kobold's too good. And yeah, that's about it. So cheers very much for watching, guys. Check out the new map, hopefully you enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. As Kappa is now typing something potentially. Anyway, I think it's a lot of fun, I enjoy it. There's obviously like a download here. But yeah, So check it out, have fun with it. And yeah, cheers very much for watching, appreciate it, like, subscribe, all of that, and I'll catch you in the next one.